these Americans aren't smarter than us. Why are they richer than us? I mean, clearly I can kick their butt individually. Why does Joe Sixpack, who watches college football and drinks beer, make $50,000 a year? And why does Ram Bharose in Kanpur or Alia or wherever make 50,000 rupees a year and works much harder and seems to be almost as smart? And I think that is really my sort of recognition that there is no such thing as poor people. There are people in poor places. And I mean, obviously the place when I mention, you will think physical, right? Of course, an electrician who moves from Balasore in Orissa to Bangalore gets 4 times more salary, and when the same electrician moves to Switzerland, you get 25 times more salary. But there are other poor places. There are 5 places in my mind. 2 of them are physical, of course, state. My parents live in UP, I live in Karnataka. Both have the same GDP, but Karnataka does it with 1/4 the number of people. If you think they're in the least productive. Now there is a 28 times difference in productivity. You'll never pay the wage premium. If you don't pay the wage premium, you'll never be productive. So I think there's states, there's cities, there's sectors, there's firms, and of course there's skills. Right? We pay 4 times different salary to a kid the same age and maybe having the same qualification on paper. So I think in my mind, this productivity being much more important than everything else, and not productivity as narrowly defined, but think of productivity as the place productivity, the sector productivity, the enterprise productivity is really, really important.
It's an honor and a privilege to be here in Bangalore, which I consider to be a city of entrepreneurship. And it's a double honor because I'm surrounded by friends and family who have in some ways helped me over the last many years and unleashed what I think is a movement. And now that I've stepped away from corporate life, I also want to thank Gauri, my wife, who's here, who has helped me enormously in many things that I've done. We've got friends here, Padmaja, Murthy, and of course Sanjay, who's been not only a friend but a champion of the Yatra, Banita, who's a board member, also the COE leader, Shoaib, who's the COE leader for Digital COE, and Manish, who very kindly agreed to be the chief guest today, and Karthik, who's been my, how shall I say, buddy, mentor, as I edited the book from Penguin. So thank you all for being here at this very nice small auditorium. But we are also here to talk about a movement, and you may have detected that in some of the early videos that were shown. So this book, which I'm going to talk a bit about and others will talk, is a fascinating journey. When you document a movement, the main author doesn't become the main author. Actually, there are many people who authored this book, many of them in this room. Amrita, for instance, who was a Yatri, Navneet. And Navneet I want to single out particularly because Navneet has been instrumental in this particular function. We were quite late in organizing it. He jumped to the rescue and he kind of almost did all of this single-handedly. So thank you ever so much, Navneet. This book and what I want to speak about really is about 3 things. My journey as an author, where Karthik was with me every step of the way. I mean, I had written the book, then he edited it with me. Second is the concepts in the book. There are 3 major concepts I'd like to talk about. And finally, this whole thing around a Banyan revolution. How do we take this forward? How is the book going to be a catalyst for something bigger than just writing a book and keeping it aside? So in that 3 sequence, I actually grew with the book. I must say, I grew with the movement for the last 15 years. But what the book did is let me examine my own history, the past of this country in a very different way. और मैं कुछ समय के लिए हिंदी में बोलूँगा. मैंने अपने इतिहास का अध्ययन किया अलग तरीके से, उसको देखा, उसको दर्शाया और उसमें कई नई चीज़ें पाई. मैंने अपने आप में परिवर्तन देखा. किताब में तो देखा ही, अपने आप में परिवर्तन देखा जो पूरे देश में आ रहा था. और मैंने यह देखा कि उस किताब में निहित चीज़ें आने वाले समय में भी हम लोग के लिए प्रासंगिक रहेंगे. तो इस किताब में कई ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जो सामान्य भारत को दर्शाती हैं, लेकिन उस सामान्य भारत की प्रेरणा से मैं भी कुछ अलग हूँ. मैं भी जब आगे बढ़ा, मैं भी उसमें गया, मैंने उसका अध्ययन किया, तो मैंने देखा कि इस भारत में एक नई हुनर है, एक नई काबिलियत है जिसको शायद हम लोग तराश नहीं पाए. Hence the name Middle of the Diamond India. It's a diamond shaped geography which has to be really looked at in a different sense, and that came about because of that. Second thing is that this whole idea in some ways is represented by this movement which came along 15 years back. And I have never written a book for the sake of writing a book. My first book, India: A Journey Through Healing Civilization, was published by HarperCollins. That triggered the Jagrati Yatra. In 2007, I wrote the book. 2008, that triggered the Yatra, because I had done it in 1997 in a frenzy of passion for the nation, and I had gone back to my life in UK. But when I wrote it, then people said this is worthy of emulation. So I'm hoping that this book also creates the same fervor that that book created. I'm not like Shashi Tharoor, who goes out and kind of generates books after books after book. I'd rather wait for 10 years, get this thing going, and I hope all of you in this auditorium will help me get that reality kind of exemplified, which is what Ashutosh did when he read that first book, where he got that जो कर्म यज्ञ से जीवन के सपनों का स्वर्ग मिलेगा फ्रेज उसने वहीं पहले पढ़ा, और उसके बाद ये कार्यान्वित हो गया उसके बदौलत। मैंने उतना नहीं किया जितना जैसे आशुतोष IIT खड़गपुर के हैं, भाई साहब हमारे अनुराग जी IIT कानपुर के हैं, ये कहीं भी कुछ कर सकते थे, इन्होंने देश के लिए काफ़ी किया। मैं तो सीनियर पार्टनर था PwC में, तो क्या कुछ मैंने सेक्रीफाइस किया, सेक्रीफाइस तो इन लोगों ने किया है 15 साल से। So that's the first thing, how the book changed me, how I saw it, and how I see the future of the book.
Journey of its kind in the world. We started the Yatra from a 10 feet by 20 feet office in Prabhadevi, Mumbai, generously lent to us by Revati Prabhu and her family. Swapnil and Ashutosh would spend late nights preparing for the journey. Those were times when it was unclear if we would be successful in this mission, but a sense of lightness and warmth enveloped these two pioneers.
Only then the Republic will come into life. Otherwise, we patronize them. I talk about Arvind Rai, who has made an electrical cycle in Kushinagar. I talk about many other people in this book who are from ordinary towns and districts but have extraordinary capabilities. And we have actually not utilized that capability. And this is in India willing to rise. So that's the first concept in the book, which is important. And I of course talked about it in Kisse, Kahani, stories. I talked about how I saw that India in Kendriya Vidyalaya. I was the son of an army officer. When I went to Ahmednagar, I saw that my class fellows were slightly more marginally poorer than me. उससे थोड़े से गरीब थे. मेरे पिताजी भी कर्नल थे उस समय. पैसा नहीं, हमारे पास बहुत पैसा था. मेरी अम्मा जो महीने के अंत में थोड़ा रुकती थी, ब्रेड रोड कमाने लगता था, जैम कमाने लगता, बटर कमाने लगता था, क्योंकि मुझे मालूम था उनका भी मतलब उनके पास भी इतना धन नहीं था उस समय. लेकिन ये जो हमारे 3 और लड़कों का नाम उसमें मैंने लिखा है, एक का नाम है राम, एक का नाम अशोक, एक का नाम इकबाल, वो लोग भी थोड़े से मुझसे और गरीब थे, लेकिन उनकी भी आकांक्षाएं अलग थी, उनकी भी एक ऊर्जा थी, उनकी भी एस्पिरेशन थी मेरे जैसे. So that is the emerging middle class that this book talks about, but more importantly it talks about a way to change that, and that way is Udyamita. And Udyamita can be broadly described as entrepreneurship, but I am here to tell you that Udyamita is much more specific to a context. It is based on the energies of a leader. And what Ashutosh and I will always tell you when we talk about Ajagrati is that we are based on leadership. Essentially the 7,500 people we have created, but we have trained through this train journey. And the many Udyamis that we have now looked at in Devariya, Kushinagar are leaders. And when leaders come, Udyamita comes. Because it is contextual, it is local. Some may become unicorns, but many will be localized. Many will think about their own areas to bring that up. And I talk about topophilia, which is love of place. If you're always in this matter of abandoning locations, which is what the West encouraged. The West had a very colonial setup. And as you know, in 1784, they created Botany Bay, which is Australia's Sydney today, by forcing migration. We were always pilgrims. We went out, but we came back. We are always a country of pilgrims. And if you want to read more about that, then I recommend Diane Eck's book called Spiritual Geography, and how she talks that India has been defined by the footsteps of its pilgrims, and this Yatra itself is one of those pilgrimages that we take. That's the second piece, which is localized Udyamita development. And the third I talk about at the end of the book is a new modernity. I believe that the modernity that has been imposed on us just after we became independent was highly colonial. The top succumbed to it, and I talk a lot about anecdotal evidence of why that is the case. It's now time that the 800 million people, जहाँ पर अंग्रेजी ज़्यादा नहीं बोलते, हिंदी बोलती है, कन्नड़ा बोलते हैं वो लोग, तमिल बोलते हैं, बंगाली बोलते हैं, उनको भी हमें तवज्जो देनी चाहिए. ऐसा व्यक्ति जो कि हिंदी बोलता है वो समझते गंवार है भाई, अंग्रेजी बोलता है तभी अच्छा होगा, कन्नड़ा बोलता है तो गंवार, ऐसा नहीं है. They also have energies, they also have aspirations. How do we make sure that modernity is not equated to Western modernity? And I've also taken a fairly big axe at Western modernity based on Cartesian logic. Cartesian logic was, I am mind, you are matter, I will control you. we were always a web of connections. Indian society has been based on that. Indian traditions have been based on Brahma. It is those kind of modernity which makes sure that the plants and animals around you are also something that you respect, you revere, you sometimes worship. And I'm now living in a village in the same place that this banyan tree you saw exists, which is where 500 yatris also stay. That modernity is also important. Those are three concepts. Finally, the book talks about a banyan revolution. I'll not go too much into it, but it's about how over the next 10 to 15 years, we use the same system that we have created in Devariya to take this banyan revolution, the same banyan that we talked about. There was a white revolution. There was a green revolution. Let's welcome a banyan revolution. That doesn't depend upon what you grow out of the soil. That doesn't depend how much milk you can take out of a buffalo or a cow. It depends upon unleashing the energies of most people of this country who are ready for that action. अधिकांश भारत आज की तारीख में तैयार है उद्यमिता से, और उसमें मैंने जामवंत का किरदार बताया. जामवंत का किरदार था, और उसमें उन्होंने एक रामायण का दोहा है, छंद है, कहे रीच पद सुन हनुमाना, का चुप साध रही बनमाना, पवन तनय बल पवन समाना, बुद्धि विवेक विज्ञान विधान. यू हैव एवरीथिंग मिस्टर हनुमान. तुम्हारे पास बुद्धि है, तुम्हारा विवेक है, तुम्हारे पास विज्ञान है, लेकिन आपको ये रियलाइज नहीं होता है. उस मध्य भारत में भी सब चीज है, लेकिन उनको बताया गया है कि नहीं, तुम तो गरीब हो, तुम तो ठीक नहीं हो, तुम तो हिंदी बोलते हो, तुम तो कन्नड़ा बोलते हो. तो इस प्रकार की जो भाषा है उसको बदलने के लिए हमने बैनियन रिवोल्यूशन की बात करी है. और फॉर दैट वी हैव 4 centers of enterprise in mind. The Devariya center is almost up and running. Half of it is there. Yesterday we had some very big funder come in with some more money, so we now expanded. We'll complete that. We have one in Kanyakumari in mind, we have one in Ganjam, we have one in Nagpur, and we have one middle of the Diamond Institute in Mumbai in mind. And that middle of the Diamond Institute will actually research what is going to happen in that middle India. So friends, in the end I want to in some ways talk about the thing that Vivekananda talked about. And I may not be able to quote it because I've left my phone down below, but I know it in memory. So Vivekananda talked about, I quote, building an India yet greater than what she has been. And this is an intergenerational journey. And I talk about the book of this banyan tree witnessing the decline of India. And I'll give you that story briefly and then I'll end my talk. In 1777, my grandfather's great-grandfather, Raman, was born in Purvanchal, where I now live. At that time, India's GDP was 20% of global GDP. Being China was about 18%. His son, Visheshar Mani, was born in 1810 or thereabouts. At that time, GDP had declined to 16%. My grandfather's father, Ram Tahal Mani, was born in 1843, just about 13 years when the first war of independence, 1857, took place. At that time, the GDP had declined to 12%. When my father was born, my grandfather was born in 1900, that GDP had plummeted to 8%. His mother died of cholera at the age of 2 when he was born. So he was brought up by 5 brothers. My father, who became a general in the army, when he got admission to the Indian Military Academy in 1955, our GDP was 3%. Today, it is creeping up to 4.5%. It is this banyan tree which you saw in that thing, and I talk a lot about in the book, has seen that decline. Let's think about a future where in our generation, we can take that up to 10%. I've written the book on it. If you want to read it, and there are some partners from PwC here, The Future of India, The Winning Leap was a 10 trillion economy. The first time in 2014, we talked about it methodically in real terms. And that could be slightly bigger in 15 trillion in the next, I think 25 years. Maybe probably mostly around to see that. But my 2 daughters, if they take a run at that process, then 50 years from now, we can be at the same level that Ram Mani started his journey at 20% of global GDP. That banyan tree, a living sentient of my village, can witness it right as well. So with that wish and hope, with the wish and hope that Swami Vivekananda's dream of building an India yet greater than what she has been, I end my talk. I again thank every one of you to have come here, to have listened to me patiently, and do, of course, purchase the book, which is important, but talk about it on your social media. Make sure you spread the message, because the message will be spread only if this book is read by more and more. I've just been told by Karthik just 2 minutes back that it's gone into reprint. They've already reprinted 1,500 copies, so I'm very happy about that, so thank you very much. Clay is doing very well right now. Shortly after that, this is a hardback copy. We'll also go into a soft pack, which is a soft, and then we are also doing a Hindi version come January, February, because the story also has to be seen and heard by those in Hindi, and God willing, we'll also do a Kannada version one of these days. So with those words, thank you ever so much, and all the way.
ये है कि कई सालों से एक जागृति यात्रा और जागृति उद्यम केंद्र में चलाता हूँ, जिसका मैं फाउंडर हूँ। उसका सारांश है, इस किताब में बताया गया है कि जो भारत का एक उल्लेख था कि हम पिरामिड हैं, बॉटम ऑफ द पिरामिड, वो अब बदल गया है। अब हम एक हीरा है, वी आर ए डायमंड, और उस डायमंड नुमा हीरा को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए हमें उद्यमिता का मार्ग अपनाना पड़ेगा। और यदि हम उद्यमिता का मार्ग अपनाते हैं तो आगे चल के एक बैनियन रेवोल्यूशन की कल्पना मैं करिए कि पूरे देश भर में हम लोग उद्यमिता से रोजगार, स्वरोजगार, ये सब चीज़ें पूरे देश भर में ले आ सकते हैं। प्रासंगिक इसलिए क्योंकि अमृतकाल अभी शुरू हो गया है, अगले 25 साल में हमारा आखिरी मौका है। हम कैसे इस देश को आगे ले जाएं, लेकिन इसमें सबकी ऊर्जा की जरूरत है। जो 80 करोड़ लोग हैं, ना बहुत गरीब है ना बहुत अमीर है, उसके बारे में चर्चा है। कैसे उन लोग को हम प्रोत्साहित करेंगे ताकि आगे चल के हम लोग एक नए भारत का निर्माण कर सकें। सर, अब तो कई वीडियोस भी हैं, कई ऐसी चीज़ें हैं जिसके द्वारा इसका संदेश पूरे देश भर में जाएगा। इसका हिंदी का भी संस्करण पेंगुइन छाप रही है, अभी अंग्रेजी का बहुत अच्छा चल रहा है, पूरे देश भर में फैल गई किताब। तो डिजिटल युग में मैं यही कहूँगा कि आप लोग इसका किंडल वर्जन भी आप खरीद सकते हैं, और उसी के साथ ही साथ हम लोग इसको गाँव-गाँव तक ले जाने की प्रयास कर रहे हैं। आने वाले समय में हो सकता है हम लोग इसका छोटा संस्करण भी निकालें। सर, जागृति यात्रा पिछले करीब 15 साल से चल रही है। एक पूरी ट्रेन हम लोग पूरे देश भर में ले जाते हैं। जो द्वितीय तृतीय श्रेणी के जो जिले हैं, जैसे कि देवरिया है, गोरखपुर है, कुशीनगर, जहाँ से मैं आता हूँ, वहाँ से हम लोग कैसे लोगों को प्रोत्साहित करें। तो इसको देखने के लिए 500 लोग एक पूरी ट्रेन में 15 दिन की यात्रा करते हैं। इस बार वही यात्रा G20 के साथ हो रही है, उसका नाम है जागृति G20 स्टार्टअप 20 यात्रा, और उसमें इस बार करीब 70 लोग बाहर से भी आ रहे हैं।